Let's go to Senator James Lankford, the Oklahoma Republican Senator, sits on the Finance Committee, Homeland Security Committee. Senator, with regard to what General Mark Milley was saying and the Defense Secretary were clearly hinting at, the president ignored the advice. So someone is misrepresenting what really happened. The president said he doesn't recall either gentleman, pushing that view that 2,500 troops was called for to stay to keep the things from going haywire. Who do you believe?
Yeah, obviously, I believe where I can get the facts out and where I can get actually the testimony in this, and I can see what happened actually on the ground. The challenge that you have is we watch what happened. 2,500 people were pulled out after Milley and others had said 2,500 should stay. They watched the walk away from the embassy, which meant all the special immigrant visas holders had no place to go to actually get their paperwork processed. We watched them walk away from Bagram Air Force Base, which led to the chaos around a commercial Air Force or a commercial airport there in Kabul. So we see the results of them not leaving the 2,500. So the argument becomes who made the call. The issue is the call was made by someone that clearly is always on the president's desk to be able to make that call. And we saw the direct results of that in the chaos, and the Americans that were left behind and special immigrant visas that were left behind, and people with their green card holders were left behind in that by the hundreds or now by the thousands that we know.
Now, I know they were under oath, Senator, but to my memory, this is the first time so soon after a military, let's say, calamity, that the chief proponents parted and wanted to make it clear they parted from the commander-in-chief. What did you think of that?
Yeah. No, I think they were trying to be able to make it very, very clear that someone else made the decision on that. They gave advice and counsel. They were clear to not say this is what I told the president directly, but this is my opinion, and my opinion has not changed. It tells me pretty clearly that's been their opinion for a very long time, and that has been a clear statement for a long time. But again, the president of the United States makes the decision on this, so that we can argue about what it was on that. The president is responsible for the calamity that happened there because he's the one that actually makes the decisions on these things.
And to your point, Senator, that's the president's prerogative. Many times we've seen presidents overrule their top generals on recommendations. So having said that, I guess what makes it a little bit more complex here is the fact that he has denied, that is the president, that he was ever advised that this might not be a good idea. That clearly seems to be, being argued back and forth. Meanwhile, with General Milley, what are your views on these conversations he had with his Chinese counterpart in the waning weeks, months of the Trump administration?
Yeah, all that information has to come out on that. Obviously, military leadership cannot undermine civilian leadership in the process, so we can't have that. But I think that's really just a big distraction, and that's being pushed out by a lot of folks to be able to distract what really happened in Afghanistan. It was interesting timing for when that actually came out to kind of try to turn the nation's attention away from what President Biden has done in Afghanistan or not done in Afghanistan to be able to protect the American people.
But if that were true, would it bother you?
It is. Then that's a very serious issue. Again, there's a reason that in the United States of America, we have civilian leadership in the military, we have civilian leadership that actually coordinates what we're having on foreign policy. It's not military leadership. Military individuals follow the commands of civilian leaders, and it has to be able to remain that way, and it continues to be able to protect our republic.
In the meantime, you've heard as well, Senator, that Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, former Federal Reserve Chief at that, thinks that October 18th, the money taps out. We're going to be risking, shutting things down if we don't come up with a way to either increase the debt ceiling, find a temporary measure to keep the government lights on. Republicans are, standing united thus far in letting the Democrats handle this because they've attached so much to this. Is there a way out here that Republicans would be open to?
No, the only thing that we have laid out as Republicans is we want to see significant reform on the direction that we've got in debt and deficit. Democrats literally are saying the most dangerous thing that we have is for our economy is that we won't increase our debt ceiling, ignoring the $2 trillion they spent earlier this year, ignoring the $3.5 trillion in new entitlements that they want to be able to put out. Apparently, they don't think those are a risk at all. They don't want to discuss an additional $5.5 trillion that they're trying to be able to put out on spending on top of the budget issues that they literally haven't even taken up in committee this year. We have 12 appropriation bills. None of them have even gone through committee in the Senate. So they seem to think spending $5.5 trillion on top of a budget that they've not even worked on is not a problem, but not increasing the debt ceiling, now that is a problem. We as Republicans, myself as a conservative, fiscally say when we get to a debt ceiling vote, we should be talking about debt. We have $29 trillion now of total debt in the country. We should be talking about how do we change the trajectory of this. They don't want to discuss changing the trajectory. They just want to be able to add on more, and have said, well, we can add $3.5 trillion more on this without Republicans, and we just responded, we're not going to help you do more debt. We want to be able to talk about how we change the direction of our debt and get us on a better fiscal path.
But just to be clear, you would be open to a separate measure on raising the debt without any of this stuff attached to it, or no?
Oh, no, definitely not. The only time I've ever supported a debt ceiling increase is when it was also attached to a significant reform for the change of direction. So you go back to like the Budget Control Act before, when we actually had 2 years in a row where we decreased spending in the federal government. That was preceded by a debt ceiling conversation and a new plan to say, let's change the direction. I can support that. I can't support just status quo, add more debt, nor do I think anyone else should. The reason we have a debt ceiling is so we can debate debt. They don't want to debate debt. They just want to add more and say, come help us. We're not going to do that.
All right, Senator, thank you very much. And to the senator's point, Mitch McConnell had attempted a government funding patch without a debt limit increase, and Democrats blocked that particular matter. So again, we're back to where we were on that.